The first thing I'd like to discuss with you is what I'm going to cover just in this little presentation. And that is going to be why create content, because unless you really understand the philosophy behind this, it's going to be difficult for you to take the next steps. Then you have to obviously know your audience, and it's not just the no-brainer answer of, oh, my audience is someone between 25 and 35, a woman with a 9-to-5 job. It's going to have to be more than that, because I'll share in a bit why you need that. The next thing is your content plan audit. So auditing is basically trying to figure out where you're at right now so that you know where you want to go with your content marketing. And the types of content you can create, and you create once and you market it 10 times, because I know there are lots of big gurus out there who keep telling you that, oh, you have to constantly create valuable content for your audience, but that's really not true. Because the more you think about it, now more than ever, people are so busy, their attention is being grabbed by 10,000 other businesses every single day. They are getting a slew of email in their inboxes. They don't have time to look through everything. So just creating new content over and over every single day is not going to help you. What you need to do is you need to create one piece of solid content and market it 10 times. And that's the whole idea of the content strategy. And we are going to get into that in a bit. So now you can use this information, you can take this workbook, and you can actually plan your entire strategy. So let's get started. What I've come up with is a framework. So you start with, we are that sorry face person when we begin, because we don't know what to post, we don't know how often to post, we don't know if our audience is actually seeing our posts, we don't know where to find our topics from, our content from. It's overwhelming. So we are that sorry face, right? But you can take a step-by-step approach, the framework that I have created, and you can get over that overwhelm. So the first thing you have to do is you have to know your goals. What are your goals for creating content? And it's not just for educating your client or earning the revenue. At the end of the day, you are in business because you want a certain lifestyle, you want a certain income, you want to do certain things, etc. So all that has to come into your goals. Then, of course, you have to know your audience, because without that, you don't know what type of content will be the right content for them. You don't know where to post so that they'll see the content that you're creating. Because imagine how much effort you're putting into content creation. The next thing is audit, which of course I've already spoken about, that if you don't know where you're at, you don't know what's working, you don't know what's not working, then you cannot really come up with a winning strategy. You have to have certain content pillars and keywords that you're going to base your content around, because that is what is going to be important for distribution, right? If you don't know what keywords to use, if you haven't done that research, then it's difficult. The next thing is you need a plan for not only your regular content, but also your promotional content, because it takes time to create a promotion, right? If you're launching something new, whether it's a new product or a service, a new course, anything, you need to have a plan. You need to be able to promote. You cannot just create something today and say, hey, I'm going to start talking about it from tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. You need a plan. So the next thing is the distribution plan, because creating content is great, but if you cannot distribute it, if the right people aren't seeing it in the right places, then it's a problem. The next thing you need is a repurposing plan, because remember what I said, you 10x your marketing. So you can 10x your growth. You're not creating new content every single time. You're taking your existing content and recreating it. The next thing you have to do is content research. So it's not enough to just create content. You need to know what type of content to create, what will your topics be, etc. And then comes the actual content creation. And after the content creation, you also need to understand that just creating the content is not going to be enough. You need to be able to magnetize and attract your audience by pulling them in, and that is only possible through creating really, really strong headlines. The next thing is your scheduling. And of course, as busy entrepreneurs, we do need some automation in our businesses. Even if you're brand spanking new in business, you can use different tools for scheduling. And then comes expansion. That is what will create your 10x growth, right? Because you're not recreating, rather, you're not creating new content every single day. You are expanding your existing content. And then, of course, you need to monitor to make sure that your content is performing, right? So these are the different steps that you need to take. And of course, you are going to be able to get through some of this. I'm not, in your workbook, it's all about content marketing, right? Marketing plan. So I'm not going to get into every single thing here on this framework, because it's not part of the marketing, like content creation, etc. It's not entirely marketing, but it is content strategy, right? But of course, if you're interested in finding out more, and I will share some information with you later on, you can definitely think about joining that program and going through all of these steps so that you have a really strong content strategy. So enough said, let's get into the meat of this little presentation. So why create content? Like I said, you are not just creating content because you have to, because you were told that you have to. The only way to grow your business is to create content. No, not necessarily. And actually, not every business creates a lot of content, but you want to create content for better positioning. And by positioning, I mean differentiation. I am a business coach, for example, but there are millions of other business coaches. How do I differentiate myself? So naturally, if you're watching this training, you found something that appealed to you, whether it was my copy, whether it was the workbook, you felt that that was valuable. So I positioned myself in a way that you found value, and that's the reason you're here watching this training. So you have to create content for better positioning. You have to create content to gain more visibility. Now, whether you are just creating social media posts, whether you're creating YouTube videos, whether you are on LinkedIn networking, whether you are appearing as a guest on somebody else's podcast, etc., all of these things will help you gain visibility, and all that you're creating is content, right? You improve brand affinity. And by brand affinity, I mean creating this whole sense of goodwill and value around your brand, so that you're attracting people into your little, bubble, into your brand. They find value and they are getting attracted. Then, of course, you increase authority and increase influence. And there is a very subtle difference between authority and influence. Authority is establishing yourself as an expert, but increasing influence is where you're actually able to transform the lives or the businesses of a lot of people. So you have to have authority, be an expert, but you also need to be an influencer, so that people understand that what you're providing is solid value. The next thing, of course, is you absolutely need to know your audience. And like I said, it's not enough to just know how old they are and how many kids they have and things like that. You need to know your audience so that you can create the right message for the right platform and create the right offer. Because if you don't know your audience really well, if you don't know, what their fears are, what they're struggling with, whether they're overwhelmed, if they have a job and what are they struggling with, etc., you will not be able to create the right kind of message. And if you don't know your audience, you don't know where they're really hanging out. So you'll be on the wrong platform sharing your content, but your audience is not seeing it. And then, of course, the right offer. If you don't have the right offer, say, if I can give you an example, an executive, my clients are mostly either in a part-time or a full-time corporate job. So I know they're busy. They have kids. So I cannot expect them to come join me for a year-long or a 6 or 9 month long program. So I need to create my offer based on who they are, so I know exactly what will resonate with them and what is doable for them. Because it also does them no good. One, it does them no good if they leave the program in the middle, and it does me no good because then I have to offer a refund, right? So you have to choose. You have to know your audience really well to be able to choose the right message, the right platform, and the right offer. I know I'm spending a little extra time on this because I really want you to understand what needs to go first before you can start creating a content marketing strategy or even a content strategy. Content, and your content strategy includes content creation and content marketing, right? All right, so here are some considerations for you. Remember that more people are buying online right now, so you need to know which platforms they're on, because obviously, with the way the economy has changed over the last few months, more and more people have had to buy things online, and that is the reason even buyer demographics have changed. Baby boomers who were not that computer savvy, were not that, not buying things online, have turned to online shopping because they have no choice. So who do you want to appeal to? Remember, try and imagine how their lives may have shifted over the last few months. And then, of course, you also need to attract your tribe. And you only attract your tribe with the values you share, with the the value system. And I just don't mean the value of your content, but the value system you have, what you stand for, etc. And that is what is going to help you. So now let's talk quickly. I will walk you through this in the workbook, but let's talk quickly about the current content plan audit. So you need to know absolutely what is working, what's not working, where you're showing up, the types of content you're creating. You need to track your metrics, and you also need to understand the current content distribution plan that you have. So if you don't know what's working and what isn't working, you won't know whether to stop something or to improve something or to add something new, right? You have to know where you're showing up. What are the platforms? Are you on Facebook? Are you showing up more on LinkedIn or Instagram? You need to know if that is working. Are you getting enough people to engage with your content? Are you getting people to opt in to your freebies or your programs? If not, then you need to rethink it. Then think about the types of content, right? Again, remember, over the last few months, things have changed. People's buying behavior has changed. So the types of content you're creating, is that really what is important for your ideal audience, ideal customer? Or do you need to create a different type of content? What are you doing right now, right? So if you don't know what you're doing right now, you won't be able to pivot it or change it up when you're actually creating your content strategy. Then tracking your metrics. You need to know how everything is performing. Do you look into your analytics? What are you seeing in your analytics right now? If you haven't looked at your analytics, I recommend that you do it now when you're going through the workbook, so you know what you need to consider. All right. So then the next one is, of course, your current content distribution plan. If it's effective, if things are working, if you know what you're doing and it's getting you results, then obviously your current content distribution plan is working. But can you improve it? Heck yes, you can. And that's what the strategy is going to help you do. The next thing, of course, you have to consider are the types of content that you want to create. So the main considerations, again, are what your ideal client consumes and what is the length of your content and the frequency at which they see it. Why are these considerations important? Because imagine an executive, your ideal audience is someone. I'll take my example. My ideal audience is a woman between 35 and 50 who has a part-time or a full-time corporate job, and she's trying to set up her business on the side. Now, in the past, she would listen to podcasts or watch videos, etc., but and especially listen to podcasts on her commute, during her commute to the office. Now almost nobody is going to the office. So is she still consuming podcasts, or has she shifted to consuming short videos and short blog posts, right? You have to think about that. And how often do you need to post? Because if my client, if my ideal customer is busy because she's having to work from home, she's also having to take care of family, when does she actually find time to do anything? Maybe she finds time in the evening, late in the evening, and then by then she's exhausted, and so she doesn't know exactly, whether she has the energy to consume long videos or listen to a 30-minute podcast or something like that. In that case, and then of course, she's probably missed all the feed, the posts that you made during the day, and she's only looking at her feed at night, which is like super long, and she may have missed your post. So how many times in a day will you post, right? So these are the considerations. Now, 10x your marketing. This is the interesting and exciting part. So what are the considerations? You need to be visible to your ideal clients, not to everyone, just your ideal clients. So if you've done the exercise on getting to know your customer and knowing exactly, what their life situation is right now, then you know how to become visible in front of them. And I will also obviously be sharing the other methods that you can use to get out of that overwhelm of having to constantly create new content. And then this concept of expand versus multiplying. So this is a concept that, the expansion concept I learned from an absolutely amazing marketer called Frank Kern. And he talks about how you can take one piece of content and you can, repurpose it over and over again so that you're expanding the content. And this is my concept of expansion versus multiplication. So you are not, when you're multiplying, I believe that you are creating new content over and over again. That's how you're multiplying your content, right? But if you're expanding, you've created that content once and you are creating many pieces of content from that one single source of truth, okay? And the third consideration for you would be to reach on repeat. And this is something I've come up with because I realized that if you're expanding your content and there are people that are not seeing your posts all the time, then you have to constantly repeat yourself. And I'd like you to visualize this example. The online market now is so super saturated that people are scrolling through their feeds like, mindlessly sometimes, and they're not paying attention to what you're saying. And maybe your graphic wasn't attractive enough. Maybe they were too busy to watch a video, or they were in a noisy environment, or they were, surrounded by other people where they couldn't watch the video. So they're basically just scrolling through the content. So what they're doing is scrolling in a distracted fashion. Now imagine imagine a kid. You know that kids have a very short attention span, and that's what's happening to us adults as well these days. And kids are always distracted because they're in their own head. They're thinking their own things, and they're imagining, their whole, own little world, right? So they're distracted. And as a parent, if you try to give them instructions, if you try to tell them something, they're not paying attention to you. So what do? You have to keep repeating yourself. It's the exact same thing with your online audience right now. You have to reach them on repeat. You have to keep telling them the same thing a few times before they'll actually pay attention, right? So that's the concept of reach on repeat. Now, I'm going to give you a walkthrough and I'm going to help you with each section of the marketing workbook.